My name is Natalie, 35 years old, and the oldest of three siblings in what everyone in San Francisco considers a respectable family. Growing up, my sister Jessica and I were inseparable, sharing secrets, dreams, and that special language only sisters understand. Our family has always valued its standing in the community, careful about the image we project to the world. I never imagined that one day I'd have to choose between preserving that image and preserving my sister's trust. Before I share how I destroyed my relationship with my sister, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit subscribe if you've ever had to choose between truth and loyalty in your family. I grew up in Pacific Heights, one of San Francisco's most prestigious neighborhoods. Our beautiful Victorian home with its panoramic views of the Golden Gate Bridge was the setting for countless charity galas and dinner parties hosted by my parents. My father, Thomas, built his reputation as one of the city's premier cardiovascular surgeons. When people heard the name Dr. Bradford, they immediately associated it with excellence and integrity. My mother, Eleanor, complemented his success perfectly. Though she had a law degree from Stanford, she dedicated herself to charity work, sitting on the boards of several prestigious organizations and orchestrating fundraisers that consistently broke donation records. In this carefully constructed world of achievement and social standing, lived the three Bradford children. I was the oldest, the responsible one who understood from an early age what was expected of me. Jessica, 2 years younger, was the free spirit who challenged every boundary. Our brother Michael, 5 years my junior, was the peacemaker, the one who could smooth over any family tension with his easy charm. The dynamic between Jessica and me was complicated, but special. From the moment she was born, I appointed myself her protector. I was the one who checked for monsters under her bed, who held her hand on the first day of school, who taught her how to apply makeup away from our mother's watchful eyes. Jessica was everything I secretly wished I could be: fearless, authentic, unapologetically herself. Natalie follows rules. Jessica breaks them, our mother would say with a sigh that conveyed both exasperation with Jessica and approval of me. It was a comparison that followed us throughout childhood, creating an unspoken competition I never wanted. Our childhood was filled with secret adventures. We built elaborate forts in the garden shed, where we would hide for hours inventing stories about escaping our perfectly manicured life. We had codes and signals. 2 knocks on the wall between our bedrooms meant, "I need to talk." 3 meant cover for me with Mom and Dad. Despite our different personalities, or perhaps because of them, we formed an alliance against the pressures of being Bradford children. Promise we'll always tell each other everything. Jessica made me swear on her 13th birthday, our pinkies linked in the solemn vow that seemed so absolute in childhood. No matter what, sisters, before anyone else. I promised, believing with all my heart that nothing could ever come between us. As the oldest, I felt the weight of family expectations first. My perfect grades, volunteer work, and acceptance to Stanford weren't celebrated, they were expected. When I graduated with honors and secured a position at a prestigious financial consulting firm, my father nodded his approval. "The Bradford legacy continues," he said, as if my achievements weren't my own, but another brick in the family's carefully constructed reputation. Jessica took a different path. Her artistic talent was evident from an early age. She filled sketchbooks with drawings that captured the emotional essence of everything she observed. Where I saw rules and expectations, Jessica saw inspiration and possibility. She chose to attend Rhode Island School of Design instead of following me to Stanford, the first real crack in the perfect family narrative. "Art is hardly a reliable career, Jessica," our father said when she announced her decision. "At least minor in business." She didn't. Instead, she double majored in painting and sculpture, graduated with projects that were featured in student exhibitions, and announced she was moving to Europe to find her artistic voice. Our parents masked their disappointment at social gatherings, describing her choice as taking some time to explore her creative side before settling down, as if her passion was a phase to outgrow. The distance between Jessica and me grew along with the geographical miles. Our daily childhood conversations dwindled to weekly phone calls, then monthly emails, and finally sporadic text messages with too many details missing. I focused on building my career, advancing quickly through the firm's hierarchy, making choices that I told myself were about success, but were really about making my parents proud. When Jessica called from Barcelona to say she was extending her stay abroad indefinitely, I felt a pang of something between envy and concern. "Are you sure that's wise?" I asked, channeling our mother's practical voice rather than supporting her as a sister. "Not everything is about being wise, Nat," she replied, the nickname a reminder of our closer days. "Sometimes it's about being alive." 3 years passed, with Jessica moving between European cities, sending occasional emails with photos of her artwork and snippets of her life that seemed so vibrant compared to my structured existence. Then came the unexpected call. "I'm coming home, Nat," she said, her voice carrying an emotion I couldn't quite identify. "For a while, maybe longer. I need to see everyone." I spent the week before her arrival, ensuring everything was perfect. I took time off work to help our mother prepare Jessica's old room, as if the right throw pillows and fresh flowers could bridge the growing gap between us. I searched for the sister I remembered in the woman who arrived at San Francisco International, with a stack of canvases and a weariness around her eyes that hadn't been there before. The family gathered for dinner the evening Jessica arrived home. Our parents' dining room looked like a scene from a magazine, crystal glasses catching the light from the antique chandelier, fresh flowers arranged perfectly, and the good china that only came out for special occasions. "To having our artistic wanderer back home," our father toasted, raising his glass of 30-year-old scotch, his voice carrying both genuine affection and subtle criticism of her long absence. Jessica smiled, but I noticed it didn't reach her eyes. She seemed distracted, checking her phone frequently. Her responses to our parents' questions slightly delayed, as if she needed to process each word carefully before answering. "The Harrisons asked about you at the hospital fundraiser," our mother mentioned casually, though I recognized her technique of name-dropping important connections. "Their daughter Amanda just made partner at Goldman Sachs. Perhaps you two could reconnect while you're home." "Maybe," Jessica replied vaguely, pushing her barely touched salmon around the plate. Throughout dinner, I observed my sister. The Jessica I knew would have challenged our mother's obvious setup, would have enthusiastically described her latest artistic breakthrough, would have teased Michael about his new designer glasses. This Jessica seemed contained, as if holding herself together required all her concentration. After dessert, when our parents retreated to the living room with their after-dinner drinks and Michael excused himself to meet friends, I followed Jessica out to the garden. The night air carried the scent of our mother's prized roses as we settled on the stone bench where we'd shared so many childhood secrets. "Okay, spill it," I said, bumping her shoulder gently with mine. "Something's going on. You've been somewhere else all evening." Jessica sighed, twisting the silver ring on her middle finger, a nervous habit from childhood. "I missed you, Nat. I miss this. Just being able to talk to someone who really knows me." "I'm still here. Still the same big sister who beat up Tommy Wilson when he pulled your pigtails in 3rd grade. That earned a genuine laugh, a glimpse of the old Jessica. "God, I forgot about that. Mom was so scandalized that a Bradford would resort to physical violence. Dad secretly took me for ice cream afterward." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the years apart, dissolving in the familiar garden of our childhood. Then Jessica took a deep breath, her expression turning serious. "Nat, I need to tell you something important, something that's going to cause complications." My heart quickened. "Are you okay? Are you sick or—" "I'm married," she blurted out. "I got married 6 months ago in Mexico." The words hung between us in the night air. "Married," I repeated, trying to process the information. "To who? Why didn't you tell us? Why wasn't I there?" Jessica's words tumbled out rapidly, as if she'd been holding them back too long. His name is Marco. He's an artist I met in Barcelona. We traveled together, created together. It happened quickly, but when you know, you know. She pulled a thin gold chain from beneath her shirt, revealing a simple wedding band threaded onto it. We eloped on a beach in Tulum. It was perfect, Nat. Just us and the ocean and our promises. But why the secrecy? Why are you wearing the ring around your neck instead of on your finger? Even as I asked, a sense of foreboding grew within me. Jessica's expression tightened. Because Marco is undocumented. He came to Spain from Mexico as a teenager, lived under the radar in Europe. And he has a record, nothing serious, just some misdemeanor graffiti charges from when he was younger, but it complicates immigration. She took my hands in hers. I came back to prepare everyone to figure out the legal process of bringing him here properly. My mind raced with implications. Our father, who frequently complained about immigration policies at dinner parties. Our mother, whose social circle included some of the most conservative families in San Francisco. The questions that would inevitably follow about why Jessica hadn't had a proper wedding, with announcements and registries and 4-tier cakes. You need to help me tell them, Nat, Jessica continued. They respect you. If you support me, maybe they'll be more accepting. I wanted to be happy for my sister. Part of me was the part that remembered our childhood promises and valued her happiness above societal expectations. But another part, the part shaped by years of striving to uphold the Bradford name, immediately calculated the social ramifications. Of course I'll help, I promised, hugging her tightly, while my thoughts whirled with concerns I wasn't proud of. When do you want to tell them? Soon, but I need to find the right moment. Dad's been so stressed about that big hospital merger, and you know how Mom gets when she's planning the summer gala. That night, I lay awake long after we'd gone inside Jessica's secret, weighing heavily on me. I told myself my anxiety was about protecting her from our parents' potential disappointment. But in the darkness of my childhood bedroom, surrounded by debate trophies and perfect attendance certificates, I had to acknowledge another truth. I was worried about how Jessica's unconventional choice would affect the family image I'd spent my entire life helping to maintain. The following days became an exercise in subtle reconnaissance as I tried to gauge how our parents might react to Jessica's news. The opportunity arose naturally at my mother's monthly dinner party, where the conversation inevitably turned to the children of their social circle. The Johnson's daughter is marrying that investment banker from New York. My mother mentioned to Mrs. Sullivan, her voice carrying to where I stood arranging canapes. June wedding at the Fairmont. Very traditional. Smart girl, my father chimed in. He comes from an excellent family. Background is everything when you're building a life together. The knot in my stomach tightened. I caught Jessica's eye across the room, where she was politely enduring conversation with one of my father's colleagues. The slight shake of her head told me she'd overheard too. Later that week, I accompanied my father to a charity golf tournament. As we drove to the country club, he tuned the radio to his favorite news station, where the commentator discussed immigration policy. These people need to respect our laws, my father commented, gesturing toward the radio. If you want to come to America, there's a proper way to do it. This business of circumventing the system, it undermines everything our society stands for. I studied his profile, wondering how this man who had dedicated his life to healing others could harbor such rigid views about who deserved to be part of our country. What if someone has legitimate reasons for not following the typical immigration path? I ventured. There are always excuses, Natalie. Rules exist for a reason. The character of a person is revealed in how they respect the law. The finality in his tone closed the conversation, but opened a pit of dread in my stomach for Jessica's revelation. Meanwhile, Jessica began dropping subtle hints about Marco into conversations. During Sunday brunch, she mentioned an exhibition they had participated in together in Madrid. At dinner, she referenced his perspective on American politics. She displayed a painting in her room, a stunning abstract that captured the San Francisco skyline in bold emotional strokes. "Who's the artist?" our mother asked, admiring the piece. "A friend," Jessica replied, her casual tone betrayed by the slight flush in her cheeks. "Someone very special to me." The hints were too subtle. Our parents acknowledged them with polite interest before moving on to more immediate concerns. My father's upcoming medical conference, my mother's charity auction, Michael's law school applications. The perfect moment for Jessica's revelation never seemed to materialize. "You need to tell them soon," I urged Jessica one evening as we walked along the marina, the Golden Gate Bridge illuminated against the twilight sky. "The longer you wait, the harder it will be." I know, she sighed, frustration evident in her voice. "But every time I start to bring it up, Mom launches into another story about someone's daughter marrying a doctor or lawyer, or Dad makes some comment about people respecting traditions. It's like they've created a force field of expectations around themselves." "They love you, Jess. They'll adjust." Will they? Or will they just see Marco as another disappointment? Another way. I've failed to be the perfect Bradford daughter. The bitterness in her voice surprised me. "That's not fair. They've supported your art." "They've tolerated my art," she corrected. "Big difference. They're still waiting for me to grow out of it to come back and get a real job, like you settle down with someone they can brag about at the club." Her words stung because they contained a kernel of truth I didn't want to acknowledge. Our parents' acceptance was conditional, measured in how well we fulfilled their expectations. My conformity had earned me their approval. Jessica's authenticity had often earned her their concern. The tension between us grew as another week passed without Jessica disclosing her marriage. She began taking private calls in the garden, speaking rapidly in the Spanish she'd perfected during her time abroad. I noticed her checking flight schedules on her laptop. The pressure built like a storm system, gathering energy before breaking. Then came the call that shattered my already fraying composure. I was working in my father's home office when my phone rang with an international number. "Hello, is this Natalie?" a heavily accented male voice asked. "This is Marco, Jessica's husband." My heart jumped at the forbidden words spoken so casually. "Yes, this is Natalie," I replied, closing the office door. "Jessica has told me so much about you. I feel like I know you already." His warm tone contrasted with my growing anxiety. "I wanted to let you know personally I've booked a flight to San Francisco. I'm surprising Jessica next Saturday. She misses me terribly, and I cannot wait any longer to meet her family." The room seemed to tilt beneath me. "Next Saturday, that's my parents' anniversary dinner. They're having all their closest friends over, the hospital board members, Mom's charity committee. Perfect a celebration. I bring good tequila from Mexico. We make proper toast to their marriage." His enthusiasm only heightened my panic. "Marco, Jessica hasn't told them about you yet. About the marriage." A long pause followed. "She promised she would prepare them." The hurt in his voice was palpable. "She's trying to find the right moment. These things are complicated in our family." "Love is not complicated, Natalie. It is the simplest thing in the world. Everything else that is what people make complicated." After ending the call, I sat frozen in my father's leather chair, surrounded by his medical awards and family photos carefully arranged to tell the story of Bradford's success. In 4 days, that narrative would be shattered by Marco's arrival. Jessica needed to tell our parents before then, but knowing my sister's tendency to avoid conflict, I feared she would procrastinate until it was too late. I tried to reach her immediately, but my calls went straight to voicemail. According to our mother, she had gone to visit an old art school friend and wouldn't be back until tomorrow. The countdown clock in my mind ticked louder with each passing hour. The evening of my parents' anniversary arrived with perfect San Francisco weather, clear skies, and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of the bay. The house transformed into a showcase of their 35 years together, photos from their wedding at Grace Cathedral, displayed alongside achievements and family milestones. White roses and lilies arranged throughout the room's champagne, chilling in silver buckets. Guests began arriving at 7, my father's hospital colleagues and their spouses, my mother's fellow board members, family friends who had known us since childhood. Everyone dressed impeccably, air kisses exchanged alongside genuine embraces, conversations flowing about recent vacations and children's accomplishments. Jessica appeared just before dinner, wearing a vintage emerald dress that highlighted her artistic sensibility. She seemed calmer than she had in days, smiling genuinely as she accepted congratulations on her return to the States. I caught her eye across the room, silently questioning if she'd told our parents yet. The slight shake of her head confirmed my fears. As I helped my mother direct caterers in the kitchen, I glanced at the antique clock on the wall. 8:30. According to the flight information Marco had sent, his plane would land at 9:15. Allowing for customs and the drive from SFO, he could arrive at our doorstep by 10:30, right in the middle of my father's traditional anniversary toast. I felt the situation spiraling beyond my control. Jessica had promised to tell our parents before the party, but here we were, surrounded by the most important people in their social circle, with her secret still intact, and her husband en route to our doorstep. At 9, as guests moved to the dining room, I spotted Jessica checking her phone repeatedly, a secretive smile playing on her lips. She knew. She knew Marco was coming and was planning to surprise not just our parents, but the entire party with his arrival. Panic rose in my chest. This couldn't happen, not like this. Not with Judge Williams and his wife present, not with the hospital board chairman who had just led the fundraising campaign for stricter border security, not with my mother's society friends who would spread the news across San Francisco by brunch tomorrow. I made a split-second decision that would change everything between my sister and me. I approached my parents where they stood greeting guests at the dining room entrance. "I need to speak with you both," I said urgently. "Now, in private. It's important." The concern in their eyes was immediate. My father glanced at his watch. "Natalie, we're about to serve dinner. Can this wait?" "It absolutely cannot wait," I insisted, my voice strained with barely controlled anxiety. "Please, just for a minute." I led them to my father's study, closing the heavy oak door behind us. The room felt airless, the weight of what I was about to do crushing my chest. "Natalie, what on earth is going on?" My mother demanded, her perfect hostess smile replaced by irritation. I took a deep breath. "Jessica is married," I blurted out. "She eloped in Mexico 6 months ago. Her husband's name is Marco. He's an undocumented immigrant with a criminal record, and he's on his way here right now to surprise her. He'll be walking through our front door in less than an hour in the middle of your anniversary party." The words hung in the air between us like shattered glass. My mother sank into the leather armchair, her hand flying to her pearl necklace. My father remained standing, his face flushing with shock and anger. "What did you just say?" he asked, his surgeon's composure cracking. Before I could elaborate, the study door opened. Jessica stood in the doorway, her expression transforming from curiosity to horror as she registered the scene before her. "Natalie, Mom, Dad, what's going on?" Her eyes darted between us. Our mother stood smoothing her silk dress with trembling hands. "Is it true? Are you married to some illegal immigrant we've never even met?" The blood drained from Jessica's face. She turned to me, betrayal etching itself into every feature. "You told them before I could. You promised you wouldn't." "His flight lands in 20 minutes, Jess," I explained desperately. "He was going to walk in here during the party. I was trying to protect—" "Protect what?" She interrupted, her voice rising. "The precious Bradford reputation, the perfect anniversary party. What exactly were you protecting, Natalie?" "The family." I insisted, the words sounding hollow even to my own ears. I was giving them a chance to prepare to avoid a scene. "A scene," she repeated, tears welling in her eyes. God forbid we have a genuine human moment that isn't carefully choreographed for social approval. Our father stepped forward, his voice dropping to the controlled tone he used when delivering difficult diagnoses. Jessica, we need to discuss this rationally. If this man has legal issues, if he's entered the country illegally, his name is Marco. Jessica cut in. My husband's name is Marco Alvarez. He's the most talented artist I've ever known. He's kind and brilliant and loves me for exactly who I am. She pulled the gold chain from beneath her dress, removing the wedding band and placing it on her finger where it belonged. He has applied for proper documentation. The criminal record Natalie so helpfully mentioned was for painting a mural on an abandoned building when he was 19. A commotion from the hallway drew our attention. Michael appeared at the doorway, his expression confused. What's happening? People are wondering where you all disappeared to. Jessica has apparently married an illegal immigrant with a criminal history, our father informed him bluntly. And he's on his way here now. Michael's eyebrows shot up. He looked at Jessica, then at me. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You knew about this, he asked me, and you ambushed her like this. Before I could defend myself, the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. Jessica straightened her shoulders, wiping tears from her cheeks. That's him, she said quietly. My husband is here to meet my family. I wanted it to be a beautiful moment. She turned and walked toward the front door, leaving us frozen in the study. After a moment's hesitation, my parents followed clearly, intent on damage control. I trailed behind shame, beginning to creep through my rationalization. The scene that unfolded in our elegant foyer would be seared into my memory forever. Jessica flung open the door and fell into the arms of a tall man with warm brown skin and intelligent eyes. He held her tightly, whispering something in Spanish that made her sob against his shoulder. When they separated, Marco looked up to find not just Jessica's family, but a hallway full of party guests, watching the scene with undisguised curiosity. If he was intimidated, he didn't show it. He extended his hand to my father with dignity. Dr. Bradford, Mrs. Bradford, I am Marco Alvarez. It is an honor to finally meet Jessica's family. I apologize for arriving uninvited to your celebration. My father hesitated before briefly shaking Marco's hand. My mother merely nodded, her social training preventing an outright snub despite her shock. The awkward silence was broken by the hospital board chairman who stepped forward with narrowed eyes. Alvarez, aren't you the street artist who had that controversial exhibition in Barcelona last year? The one with the political murals about immigration? Marco nodded, his arms still around Jessica's waist. That was my work, yes. Murmurs spread through the gathered guests. I watched our parents' faces tighten with mortification as their anniversary party transformed into something beyond their control. Jessica looked around at the crowd, at our parents' discomfort, at my guilty expression. Something shifted in her face, a decision made. She raised her voice to address everyone. Since we're all here, I'd like to introduce you to my husband, Marco Alvarez. We were married in Mexico 6 months ago. I apologize for the unconventional announcement, but sometimes life doesn't follow the prescribed schedule. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. I'm not sorry for who I love or how we chose to begin our marriage. I am only sorry that my own sister, her eyes locked with mine, decided that preserving appearances was more important than preserving my trust. I felt dozens of eyes turn to me, the weight of their judgment crushing. You didn't protect the family, Jessica said directly to me, her voice breaking. You protected your idea of what our family should be, and you destroyed what we actually had. She turned to Marco, speaking softly. Let's go. I can't be here right now. As they walked out the door, Marco carrying Jessica's hastily packed bag, I stood frozen in the foyer. My father immediately launched into damage control, explaining to guests that we'd just received surprising news and asking everyone to return to the dining room where dinner would be served. My mother touched my arm as she passed, whispering, "At least we avoided a scene." But she was wrong. The scene had happened, not a public one with raised voices and accusations, but the quiet devastation of watching my sister walk away with the certainty that I had betrayed her in the worst possible way. The days following my parents' anniversary party passed in a surreal haze. On the surface, life continued. My father went to the hospital, my mother attended her committee meetings, I returned to work. We operated like automatons, going through motions while processing the seismic shift in our family. Our parents' reaction was complicated. Over breakfast the morning after, my father expressed a mixture of disappointment and relief. "Obviously, this is not how we would have chosen for Jessica to settle down," he said, stirring his coffee with mechanical precision. "But you were right to warn us, Natalie. Imagine if he had simply walked in unannounced." My mother nodded her agreement. "We can manage this narrative. Jessica has always been impulsive. People will understand that she fell in love during her travels. We'll emphasize Marco's artistic credentials rather than his background. With time, this will normalize." They were already doing what the Bradfords did best, reshaping uncomfortable truths into acceptable narratives, focusing on appearance management rather than emotional fallout. Neither seemed to register that Jessica herself was now missing from our lives. My initial attempts to contact her were met with silence. My calls went unanswered, my texts unread. When I drove to the address, Michael had reluctantly provided a small apartment in the Mission District that Marco had arranged before his arrival. No one came to the door despite the lights being on inside. After a week of silence, I received a brief text. "I need space. Please respect that." 6 words that cut deeper than any angry tirade could have. Jessica had always been emotional, expressive, quick to argue, but equally quick to forgive. This quiet, firm boundary was new and terrifying in what it represented. At Sunday dinner, Michael's barely concealed anger added another layer of discomfort. He had always been our peacemaker, the one who smoothed over family tensions with humor and pragmatism. Now he sat stiffly at the dining table, answering questions about law school with minimal responses, avoiding eye contact with me. When our parents retired to the living room after dinner, I cornered him in the kitchen. "You're angry with me too," he sighed, leaning against the counter. "What did you expect, Natalie? You ambushed Jess in the worst possible way." "I was trying to protect the family from a scene." "No." His voice was uncharacteristically hard. "You were protecting yourself from discomfort. You were protecting Mom and Dad from having to deal with something authentic and messy and real." He shook his head. "I've spent time with them, you know, Marco and Jess. He's actually incredible, talented, intelligent, devoted to her. They could have been welcomed into this family if you'd given them the chance to introduce him properly." His words landed like blows. "I made a mistake," I admitted the first time I'd said it aloud. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing for who?" He pushed away from the counter. "Jessica trusted you with something incredibly important to her. Your first instinct wasn't to support her, but to control how her truth was revealed. That says a lot about who you've become, Nat." The accusation in those last words, "who you've become," haunted me for weeks afterward. When had I transformed from Jessica's protective older sister into someone who would betray her confidence? When had preserving the family image become more important than protecting my sister's heart? The divide in our family grew more pronounced as time passed. Jessica began joining my parents for occasional dinner stilted affairs where Marco was present, but conversation remained superficial. She never came when I would be there. Holidays approached, and elaborate negotiations took place about who would attend which gatherings. Through Michael, I learned that Jessica had formally announced she was taking a break from her relationship with me. Not a temporary cooling-off period, but an indefinite separation from the sister who had broken her trust. The family photographs on my parents' mantel became painful reminders of what was lost. Jessica and I, with our arms around each other at her college graduation, building sandcastles on Stinson Beach, dressed as matching witches for Halloween. My mother attempted to mediate in her practical way. "Jessica has always been dramatic," she said over lunch one day. "Give her time to calm down. This estrangement business is unnecessary." "It's not estrangement business, Mom," I replied, the frustration bubbling over. "I betrayed her trust in a fundamental way. She has every right to be angry." My mother's expression softened with rare vulnerability. "We miss seeing you two together. The family doesn't feel right with this divide." That was the problem in a nutshell. The family appeared intact from the outside. All 5 Bradfords plus Marco occasionally gathered for obligatory events, smiling in photographs, maintaining the illusion of unity. But inside, the foundation had cracked. We had become performers in a play about family, rather than actually being one. As months passed, depression settled over me like a heavy fog. I went through motions, excelling at work, attending social functions, maintaining the perfect daughter image, while feeling increasingly hollow. At night, I would scroll through old photos of Jessica and me, wondering if the loss of our relationship was the price I would permanently pay for one terrible decision made in panic. The lowest point came during Thanksgiving dinner. My parents had orchestrated a careful schedule. Jessica and Marco would join them for dessert, after Michael and I had already departed. As I helped my mother clear the dinner dishes, I noticed a sonogram image attached to the refrigerator with a decorative magnet. "What's this?" I asked, though I already knew. My mother glanced over. "Jessica's baby, due in May." The casual way she delivered the news made it clear she assumed I already knew. "They told us last week." I was going to be an aunt, and my sister hadn't told me herself. I wouldn't be at her baby shower. I wouldn't hold her hand through delivery. I wouldn't be among the first to hold my niece or nephew. The full weight of what my betrayal had cost me crashed down all at once. I barely made it to my car before the sobs overtook me. Sitting in my parents' driveway, I finally confronted the truth without excuses or justification. I had prioritized the appearance of family over the heart of it. I had valued control over connection. And I had lost something precious in the process. The new year arrived with San Francisco's characteristic fog and drizzle matching my internal landscape. 6 months had passed since the night I betrayed Jessica's trust. 6 months of existing in the margins of my own family, present but not connected. At my therapist's suggestion, I had begun the difficult work of understanding my own motivations. Dr. Rivers was not interested in easy answers or self-justification. "Let's explore why preserving the family image was so important to you that you were willing to sacrifice your sister's trust," she suggested during one particularly difficult session. "I was trying to protect everyone from a scene," I repeated my standard explanation. "Were you, or were you trying to control a situation that made you uncomfortable? What exactly were you afraid would happen if Marco had simply arrived as Jessica planned?" The question forced me to examine deeper truths. Our parents would have been embarrassed. Their friends would have talked. And how would that have affected you personally? I sat with the question, peeling back layers of rationalization. "I would have felt like I failed them," I finally admitted. "I've always been the one who makes sure everything goes according to plan, who maintains the Bradford reputation. It's my role. My value." "Your value to whom?" Dr. Rivers pressed gently. The realization was painful. "To my parents, maybe even to myself. I don't know who I am outside of being the perfect Bradford daughter." This insight opened a door to more difficult self-examination. In weekly sessions, I began recognizing patterns that had shaped my relationship with Jessica from childhood. My need to control situations, my discomfort with her authenticity, perhaps even my jealousy of her freedom. I discovered old letters Jessica had written me during her first year at art school, filled with excitement, about her creative breakthroughs and new friendships. My replies, which I'd also kept, were full of practical concerns. Was she maintaining her GPA? Had she considered summer internships? What was her plan after graduation? Even then, I had been trying to reshape her choices to fit the Bradford template rather than celebrating her unique path. The hardest truths emerged during a conversation with Michael. We met for coffee at a quiet cafe near his law school, the first time we'd spoken privately since his kitchen confrontation months earlier. I need to understand what happened, I told him. Not to excuse myself, but to make sure I never repeat it. Michael studied me for a long moment before speaking. You want the unvarnished truth. You've spent your entire life being the perfect Bradford. Perfect grades, perfect career, perfect daughter. Jessica threatened that narrative by being authentic instead of perfect. I was proud of her authenticity, I protested weakly. Were you? Or did it make you uncomfortable because it highlighted the parts of yourself you've sacrificed to meet expectations? He softened his tone. Nat, you betrayed Jessica because in some way you've been betraying yourself for years. When she married Marco, this passionate, unconventional choice made from the heart, it reflected back everything you weren't allowing yourself to be. His words stripped away my last defenses. I had been jealous of Jessica's courage to live authentically. I had resented her freedom while simultaneously worrying about how her choices reflected on the family on me. My betrayal hadn't been a momentary lapse in judgment, but the culmination of years of prioritizing appearance over authenticity, control over connection. With this painful clarity came the determination to make amends, not to earn quick forgiveness, but to demonstrate genuine change. The first step was reaching out to Marco, the person I had reduced to a problem, rather than recognizing as my sister's chosen partner. We met at a small art gallery in Oakland, where some of his work was being displayed. I arrived early, studying his paintings, powerful pieces that captured human connection and dislocation with equal intensity. When he appeared, his expression was guarded but not hostile. Thank you for meeting me, I said, the rehearsed speech evaporating as nerves took over. Jessica doesn't know I'm here, he replied. I haven't decided if I will tell her. That's fair. I took a deep breath. I wanted to apologize to you directly. What I did was wrong. I reduced you to a problem to be managed rather than welcoming you as the person my sister loves. I'm deeply sorry. Marco studied me with artist's eyes that seemed to see beneath surfaces. You know what was hardest for Jessica? Not that you told your parents about me. It was that you didn't believe in her enough to let her handle her own revelation. You decided your way of managing the situation was better than hers. The observation struck at the heart of my controlling behavior. You're right. I didn't trust her judgment. She is stronger than you think, than your whole family thinks. A hint of warmth entered his voice as he spoke about Jessica. She sees everything clearly but loves anyway. It's what makes her both an extraordinary artist and an extraordinary person. I know, I said softly. I've always known that about her. Marco's expression softened slightly. She is having a baby girl. Did you know? The confirmation that I would have a niece brought tears to my eyes. Mom mentioned the pregnancy, not that it's a girl. May 17th is the due date. He hesitated before adding, Jessica keeps the birthday card you sent. She didn't open it, but she kept it. Maybe that means something. It was a tiny seed of hope in barren ground. That night, I wrote Jessica a letter, not of excuses or pleas for forgiveness, but of complete honesty. I acknowledged the jealousy and control issues that had influenced my betrayal. I took full responsibility without qualification. I expressed my love without expectation of reconciliation. After pouring my heart onto 5 handwritten pages, I mailed the letter, knowing it might go unread, understanding that genuine amends meant respecting her boundaries while demonstrating change. Spring arrived in San Francisco, painting the city with wildflowers and fresh possibility. The months following my conversation with Marco and my letter to Jessica had been transformative in ways I hadn't anticipated. I had begun making changes that weren't about pleasing others or maintaining appearances. I reduced my hours at the consulting firm to pursue volunteer work teaching financial literacy in underserved communities. I moved from my sterile downtown apartment to a smaller place in a diverse neighborhood where I was building genuine connections with neighbors. I started painting terrible amateur efforts that nonetheless connected me to the creative joy Jessica had always known. Most significantly, I had honest conversations with our parents about their role in creating the family dynamics that contributed to my betrayal of Jessica. "We've always been so proud of you girls," my father protested when I suggested that their emphasis on appearances had created unhealthy pressure. "We wanted the best for you." "The best, according to whose definition?" I challenged gently. "You taught us that family reputation matters more than individual authenticity. That's why I thought it was acceptable to betray Jessica's trust to protect the Bradford image." These conversations were uncomfortable but necessary small cracks in the perfect facade that allowed fresh air into our family system. My mother surprisingly proved more receptive to this examination than my father. "Perhaps we did place too much emphasis on what others thought," she admitted during a private lunch. "It was how we were raised ourselves." 2 weeks after sending my letter, I received a brief text from Jessica. "I read what you wrote. I need time, but I heard you." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement, the first tentative step toward potential healing. Through Michael, who had gradually softened toward me as he witnessed my efforts to change, I learned that Jessica had shared parts of my letter with Marco. "He told her that people can change if they truly want to," Michael reported. "That families can heal if everyone does their part." In early April, I received another text from Jessica. "Civic Center Cafe, Thursday at 2. Just us." The message sent my heart racing with nervous anticipation. I arrived half an hour early, securing a quiet corner table and trying to calm my jangled nerves with chamomile tea. When Jessica walked in, her pregnancy was unmistakable, 7 months along her belly, prominent beneath a flowing blue dress. She moved differently, one hand resting protectively on her abdomen, her posture both vulnerable and powerful. I stood as she approached, resisting the urge to rush forward and embrace her. "Thank you for coming," I said instead, waiting for her cue on how to proceed. Jessica sat carefully studying me, with eyes that held both wariness and something softer. "You look different," she observed. "I feel different," I admitted. "I am different." The conversation that followed was difficult, emotional, and absolutely necessary. Jessica didn't make it easy. She challenged my explanations, pointed out patterns of behavior I hadn't fully recognized, expressed anger that had been building since childhood about my tendency to control rather than support. "I needed a sister who had my back," she said, tears gathering in her eyes. "Not one who appointed herself the manager of my life." "You deserved better," I acknowledged. "I want to be the sister you deserve if you'll give me the chance to try." Jessica wiped away tears, her hand automatically moving to her belly when the baby kicked. "I can't just forget what happened, Nat. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight." "I know. I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness, just the opportunity to show you over time that I've changed, that I'm still changing." She considered this, her artist's eyes taking in details beyond words. "Marco thinks I should give you another chance. He says everyone deserves the opportunity to grow." A small smile touched her lips. For someone who creates such intense art, he has a surprisingly optimistic view of human nature. "He sounds wise," I ventured. He is. Her expression softened with love. And he wants our daughter to know her aunt. The words hung between us, not quite forgiveness, but an opening. I would like that very much, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Small steps, Natalie. I can't just go back to how things were. I don't want to go back, I assured her. That relationship was flawed. I want to build something new, something better. Something based on who we actually are, not who anyone expects us to be. We talked for nearly 2 hours, beginning the delicate work of rebuilding trust. When we parted, Jessica allowed a brief hug, her body unfamiliar with the new curve of pregnancy, yet eternally familiar as my sister. On May 17th, Michael called to tell me Jessica had gone into labor. She said, "You can come to the hospital if you want to, after the baby arrives." I sat in the hospital waiting room for 6 hours alongside our parents, who maintained a careful distance, respecting the fragility of the situation. When Marco finally emerged exhausted but radiant, he looked directly at me. "She's asking for you. Just you for now." The hospital room was dim and quiet when I entered. Jessica looked both depleted and luminous, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in a soft yellow blanket. She looked up as I approached, her expression open in a way I hadn't seen in nearly a year. "Meet your niece," she said softly. "Lucia Eleanor Alvarez." I peered at the perfect tiny face, skin slightly darker than Jessica's, a dusting of dark hair features that somehow already suggested both parents. "She's beautiful," I whispered, afraid to shatter the delicate moment. "Would you like to hold her?" The question contained multitudes, not just permission to hold the baby, but the first real extension of trust since our estrangement. With trembling hands, I accepted the precious bundle, marveling at her impossible smallness and infinite possibility. "Hello, Lucia," I murmured. "I'm your Aunt Natalie. I've been waiting so long to meet you." Over the following weeks and months, our relationship began healing through small moments rather than grand gestures. I brought dinner when they were too exhausted for cooking. I learned to change diapers and soothe Lucia's colic under Jessica's patient guidance. Marco taught me to make his grandmother's enchiladas, sharing stories of his childhood in Mexico City as we chopped and sautéed. The journey wasn't smooth, we still hit triggers. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, words sometimes failed us. But we were committed to the process, to building a relationship based on acceptance, rather than expectation, support, rather than control. Our parents, too, were slowly adapting. My father's initial skepticism about Marco gradually yielded to genuine respect for his artistic talent and devotion to Jessica. My mother surprised everyone by becoming Lucia's most enthusiastic grandmother, proudly showing photos at her charity meetings without concern for what anyone might think about her multicultural granddaughter. One evening, as Jessica and I sat on her small apartment balcony, watching the sunset while Marco gave Lucia her bath, she turned to me with unexpected vulnerability. "Do you remember that promise we made when I was 13? To tell each other everything, sisters, before anyone else?" "I remember," I said softly, the memory bittersweet with all that had happened since. "I think we can make a better promise now," she suggested. "Not to tell each other everything, but to respect each other's truths. Not sisters before anyone else, but sisters who support each other's authentic choices." The wisdom in her words brought tears to my eyes. "I'd like that very much." Jessica reached over to squeeze my hand. "We'll never go back to how we were before, Nat. But maybe what we're building now is stronger because it's based on who we really are, not who we pretend to be." A year after the night that shattered our relationship, we were crafting something new from the broken pieces, not a perfect restoration of what was lost, but a mosaic more beautiful for having been broken and mindfully reassembled. I thought I was protecting our family's reputation when I revealed Jessica's secret. I called it honesty. She called it humiliation. What I learned through losing and slowly regaining my sister's trust was that a family isn't about maintaining appearances or conforming to expectations. It's about accepting each other's authentic selves, even when they make choices we don't understand. I believed I was saving our family, but I was actually destroying its foundation. True family survives truth. It doesn't require lies. Now I understand that honesty without compassion isn't virtue, it's cruelty. And protecting someone's image while betraying their trust isn't love, it's control. I'm learning slowly how to truly love my sister for who she is, not who I think she should be. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone you love? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more reflections on family forgiveness and finding authentic connection. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes our greatest growth comes from our most painful mistakes.